I wanted to share some reflections on climate change and what is the approach to solving the problem of climate change and who can potentially solve the problem. Um, Obviously, the question of who can solve the problems of climate change and the risks that emanate from it can be a few groups of stakeholders. First, we look at governments. So, governments, one would assume, have a vested interest in solving the problem of climate change to protect their populations. But what history has shown is governments are hopelessly divided on the issue of who's responsible for climate change, as in which countries, who pays what, and all that. Like we have had quite a few COPs, COP 21, COP 15, 16, but there's really not the sort of progress that is needed to, from a government level, on a consensus basis amongst developed and developing economies that can that we feel comfortable with around progress to mitigate the impacts of serious climate change. The UN Secretary General, current and previous, have constantly lamented about countries' uh, lack of progress around this issue. So then, if if the governments are like that, and then comes the question of companies, corporates. What is We hear a lot about CSR, we hear corporate social responsibility, triple bottom line reporting, this, that. But, but what's the sort of uh, how evolved are the responses from companies across the world to solve the problem of climate change and the risks that it poses? So you find many examples of companies who behave as good corporate social citizens in certain countries and follow the rules, and those same companies behaving quite differently than other countries where there are not those rules set or environmental laws set. So are companies collectively, globally, doing enough to solve this serious problem? And my assessment is it's not. And obviously, I'm interested to hear the views of others that will companies, is there enough being done globally across all companies um, to sort of make, to avert some of the worst impacts of climate change or reduce temperature rise to a certain um, limit? Then the third and most important group of stakeholders are us, the people of every country, every nation, every locality, and the population, the 8 billion population plus population in the globe. So, what are we doing collectively? Are we out on the streets? Probably, other than Extinction Rebellion and those sort of groups, there's not probably no one's sort of going out on the street and sort of saying that, hey, what sort of world will live tomorrow for the children, not to that extent globally. Um, what are we ready to do to sort of, what are we ready to sacrifice for um, for for making the climate, to avoid a climate emergency? In real terms, many a government have lost elections because they've tried to impose a carbon tax or sort of or similar nature, and and that has caused governments to fall. So, as a people, till our own house is destroyed or our lives are impacted, we do not collectively are not doing enough to. We're not ready to give up our lifestyles. We're not ready to give up, you know, usage of certain things to mitigate the impact of climate change. We want change, maybe, yes, and many of us do, but to what extent are we ready to make sacrifices to achieve that change? So I'm not very hopeful that collectively the and then there's leaving aside that there's a huge number of people in many countries who still don't believe that climate change is an issue at all, and I think it's all a hoax and this and that and everything. So if people are also not sort of alarmed enough or conscious enough or active enough collectively across to or in a position even to do something, because the poorest often feel the most impact, but what can they do? Really not much. um, Regarding the mitigating the effects of climate change. So we got government, we got companies, we got people. So if all these three are not doing enough uh, and quickly enough to mitigate the impacts of climate change, then how will change happen? Will change happen? Will we avert some of the projections that are now being projected about temperature rises? So really, I see that the only hope is if there is some sort of game changing invention that can do something. And I don't think that that will save us, but maybe it's similar to when electricity was invented. That changed the world, or when antibiotics were invented, was discovered. Before that, amputation could kill you, but dramatically changed how treatment was done and what could be doable. And AI definitely is not going to save the world from climate change. So, what is that invention that's going to be? I mean, there is solar, there is wind, there is wave energy, and there's a lot of things that are happening to promote renewables. But we are not yet at a stage where we can confidently say to the entire globe that the energy transition is happening in a way that will save the world. We are hopeful that it will happen, but there's some way to go. So really, where is the ground to feel optimism about that we will do something on time, or are we destined to just get to a stage where disaster after disaster will keep happening? More properties will become uninsurable, more business losses will mount, and then some belated action in a much more serious basis might start, beyond all the much of the window dressing that is going on now. So, interested in hearing everyone's thoughts around this topic as to who's going to do what is needed to save the planet, and more importantly, the 8 billion people on not the planet, but the 8 billion people on it. Thank you.